Have you ever stood inside a great cathedral like Westminster Abbey? The air is still, filled with a hushed reverence. You walk over stone slabs, their inscriptions worn smooth by centuries of footsteps. Beneath your feet lie the bones of kings, queens, poets, and knights, grand tombs, marble effigies, forever sleeping in peace. But what really lies beneath that stone? What secrets are sealed away in the darkness, far from the light of the stained-glass windows? These tombs are more than memorials, they are time capsules, holding the final, often grim chapter of history's most famous lives. The story doesn't end with a monarch's last breath. In fact, a new, unsettling narrative begins. The fate of a royal body was a matter of immense political and symbolic importance. It had to be preserved and interred with ceremony to reinforce the power of the crown. But biology is a stubborn force, caring little for crowns or titles. The journey from deathbed to sealed tomb was perilous, fraught with challenges that might shock modern sensibilities. This is the forgotten story of Queen Elizabeth I, not the icon but what happened after. It's a tale that peels back layers of ceremony to reveal a more human, visceral reality. Let's venture into that darkness and see what secrets Elizabeth's tomb has kept for over 4 centuries. Elizabeth I projected an image of divine permanence. Gloriana, the Virgin Queen, married to her kingdom. Yet behind this facade was a woman deeply aware of her own mortality and terrified by it. As she aged, her fear of death became palpable at court. She refused to name a successor, as if acknowledging her end would hasten it. Her final years were marked by melancholy and isolation. She had outlived friends, advisors, and her great love, Robert Dudley. She resisted her own decline, famously removing all mirrors from her presence, unwilling to confront her aging. The thought of losing control, first to old age, then to death, was a source of constant dread. She reportedly resisted going to bed during her final illness, believing if she lay down, she would never rise again. Elizabeth also had a particular horror of embalming. The idea of her body being cut open was abhorrent, but for a monarch, personal wishes clashed with the grim necessities of royal death. The state took precedence. Her body had to be preserved for lying in state and the grand funeral. The continuity of the monarchy required the Queen's body to be presentable, or at least contained. And so, as Elizabeth succumbed to illness in March 1603, the surgeons and embalmers gathered, ready to perform the very act she had so deeply feared. Thus began the final secret chapter of her story. See, embalming in the Tudor era was a brutal, invasive affair, a battle against decay. Once the Queen's last breath was drawn, surgeons began immediately, removing the organs that would decompose fastest. Evisceration involved a long incision, extracting the stomach, intestines, liver, lungs, and sometimes even the brain. These organs, considered part of the royal person, were preserved separately, often buried apart from the main body. The empty body cavity was washed with alcohols and astringents, then packed with herbs, spices, and, most importantly, salt. Salt drew out moisture, the primary fuel for decomposition. The body was then washed, anointed with oils, stitched shut, and wrapped tightly in linen soaked in wax or resin, creating an airtight seal. The goal wasn't lifelike appearance, but simple preservation and odor management. This was a practical, if gruesome, art form, designed to make the royal body last just long enough for the theatre of a state funeral. The process was a testament to the seriousness with which the Tudors regarded the symbolism of the royal body. Every step was about control over decay, over image, over the final act of a monarch's life. Yet even the most elaborate rituals could only delay the inevitable. The battle against time was always a losing one. Why all this trouble? The answer, the horror of a bursting coffin. For a monarch, weeks could pass between death and burial, time needed for funeral preparations and public mourning. But decomposition is relentless, producing gases that can build up to explosive pressure inside a sealed coffin. A bursting coffin at a royal funeral would be catastrophic, a public and political disaster, a sign of divine disapproval. To prevent this, lead coffins were essential. After embalming, the body was placed in a wooden coffin, then inside a larger airtight lead casket. The lead, soft and malleable, was hammered and soldered to seal in odors and withstand internal pressure. Spices and herbs inside the body were the first line of defense. The lead coffin was the last. The aromatics slowed decay and masked smell, but everyone knew they could only do so much. The lead was the brute force solution, the final lock on a grim biological reality. The entire process from evisceration to soldering was about maintaining the illusion of majesty and eternal power. Extreme, even barbaric methods were used to ensure the transition from living monarch to historical monument was seamless and contained, but nature always pressed back. Queen Elizabeth's funeral, April 28, 1603, was a spectacle of profound mourning. The day began with a solemn procession by water, her lead-sealed coffin, draped in purple velvet, placed on a royal barge. The Thames, once a stage for her triumphs, became a silent, mournful highway to her final resting place. Thousands lined the banks, silent or weeping as the barge passed, grief uniting all classes. The centerpiece was not the hidden coffin, but a life-sized effigy of the Queen, dressed in royal robes, crown and scepter. The effigy allowed the public to see their Queen one last time, masking the grim reality beneath. When the procession reached Westminster, the coffin was carried into the Abbey, echoing with funeral music. The ceremony was grand, attended by the political and religious elite, a final statement of Tudor power. Crowds filled the streets and rooftops, the air thick with incense and history. The effigy was removed and the coffin prepared for its descent into the royal vault. The spectacle above masked the reality below. Despite the grandeur, unsettling rumors swirled. Some accounts hinted at a smell emanating from the coffin as it was carried, proof that the battle against decay was never fully won. The science of preservation was imperfect. Nature could not be completely held at bay. A faint odor would have punctured the illusion of serene majesty, a chilling reminder of the biological truth hidden within the lead shell. One lady-in-waiting claimed the Queen's body began to crack and break open from gas buildup during lying in state. Whether a literal explosion or gradual leaking, the story highlights the immense challenges faced by royal undertakers. The Queen's body, even in death, was an active site of chemical change, fighting against its containment. These whispers serve as a crucial counter-narrative to the official story. Beneath the velvet and ceremony, a volatile reality was sealed away. The truth of decay could never be fully hidden. For over 2 centuries, Elizabeth rested in her tomb, sharing a vault with her half-sister Mary. Above ground, the monument was a site of pilgrimage, a symbol of a golden age, but below, time was relentless. In 1869, Dean Arthur Stanley, driven by historical curiosity, received permission to open the royal tombs. His mission to locate the missing body of King James I, but in the process, he unsealed the vault of Elizabeth and Mary. Lifting the stone slabs, Stanley and his team descended into the darkness for the first time in 266 years. The vault was cramped, cluttered, and damp. Coffins stacked, wood rotted, metal corroded. The scene was one of quiet, chaotic decay, a stark contrast to the glory above. The magnificent marble monument spoke of eternal glory, but the vault below told a story of neglect and the untidy reality of burial. The past, so carefully curated above, was raw and unvarnished below. Even queens could not escape the ravages of time. Stanley's lantern revealed the full extent of decay. Elizabeth's massive lead coffin rested atop Mary's, crushing the latter's wooden shell into splinters. The image of the Protestant queen pressing down on her Catholic predecessor was a powerful, if unintentional, metaphor. Elizabeth's coffin was enormous, thickly soldered, a testament to Tudor fears. But time had not been kind. The lead was fractured, a large crack running along its side, part of the lid fallen inward. The old rumors were true. The coffin had burst, just as feared. Through the cracks, Stanley glimpsed the remains of the inner wooden coffin and the decayed material within. He did not disturb the Queen's remains, but what he saw was enough. The serene marble effigy above was a world away from the violent rupture and slow disintegration below. Stanley's meticulous notes confirmed history and dispelled the myth that royal death was different. Elizabeth, the great Gloriana, was subject to the same laws of nature as any subject. Her last line of defense had failed, leaving chaos in the darkness beneath the abbey floor. The discovery in Elizabeth's tomb presents a powerful contrast. Above ground, her effigy lies in pristine repose, a symbol of England's golden age. Tourists gaze upon her, connecting with a figure who seems immortal. But just below, the broken lead coffin and shrouded dust tell a different story. Here, Elizabeth is not Gloriana, but a body that decayed, a coffin that cracked under pressure. The grandeur above is a beautiful lie, masking the undignified reality of time. This chasm between monument and remains is a lesson in how we remember the past. Memorials create a sense of permanence, but they are edited versions of history. The story of Elizabeth's tomb reminds us that history has two layers, the polished surface and the complex, often grim reality beneath. Even a queen could not command her body after death. Her fears were realized. The indignities she dreaded came to pass in the darkness of her vault. This does not diminish her greatness. It humanizes her, reminding us that behind the icon was a mortal woman. What is the final message of Elizabeth's silent tomb? History is a detective story, and the most crucial clues are often buried deep. The official records and monuments tell one version. The physical evidence tells another. The broken coffin is a primary source, revealing the limits of Tudor technology and the immense effort to stage manage a royal passing. When you stand in Westminster Abbey, remember what lies beneath. The cracked lead, the collapsed coffin, the centuries of silent decay. This knowledge enriches the monument, adding a layer of human truth to the marble and gold. Elizabeth wielded immense power in life, but in death, time proved stronger. Her tomb is both a triumphant symbol and a somber testament to inevitable decay. Majesty is a performance. Permanence is an illusion. Even the greatest among us are mortal. The story of what happened after Elizabeth's death completes her journey. From throne to tomb, from icon to universal truth. All that is solid melts into air, and all that lives must one day return to dust.